Now let me. Oh, it's already okay. It's already doing it on mine, I think. Okay, cool.
I'll send it to you as well if it doesn't work your end. But it's been okay with the Zoom so far, so we'll make that happen.
Excellent.
Awesome. So hi everyone, it's Harry the Soul Coach, and welcome to the Soul Truth Conversations. Today, I'm really excited to be inviting someone that I've learned a lot from over the years, and I can trace it back to about 12 years ago from one of the first videos that, I'm going to introduce him, Dave Murphy, or allegedly Dave, as he's also known as. And for those that follow me, I've been on a journey of truth for a long time, and with that you get introduced to a number of different topics, and truth is truth, and with that everything is connected. So throughout this journey, everything I've learned along the way, Dave has also been sharing a lot of this stuff in a lot deeper context. And with the journey that we've been on, there's a lot of resistance, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance, and with that comes challenges. And I know Dave's also been on a journey where he's been met with all sorts from all parts of society. And we're seeing more and more people now, especially over the last few years, who are having their own awakening. They're getting it all in one go. So it's been an interesting journey of being on the receiving end and now being the observer and seeing other people having to go on that journey too. So I just wanted to touch on a few topics because this is a whole spectrum of truth, and Dave's done so much research along the way. So for everyone watching, I'm going to ask, observe your ego throughout this, because there are things that do get said that do challenge. So rather than reacting to being on these topics, just notice, why are you getting triggered by it? And if you do get triggered by certain things, write it down, and after the conversation, then come back with questions, because throughout the journey of truth, there will be things that will be introduced to you that does touch a nerve, and it does challenge beliefs that you've grown up with, which you would assume as a truth as your own. However, when the evidence is produced, it then allows you to at least go and look into it a bit further. And that's something that I can say Dave's done really well over the years. So before we start, mate, just a big thank you. And
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you for that. And then I also got to meet you in person, where we were fighting side by side in October, which for me was a really special day. And it showed that there was a lot more unity over the UK when we do come together. And when we did, we made a big impact there as well.
Yeah, we did. And I got to discover the power of high vis.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. I remember your smile as well, and it worked really effectively.
It really did, yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to take it back, because your journey started all the way back at 9/11. And for me, that was my introduction to it. And along that way, you've touched on common law, the topic flat earth, then you've got health, and there's a topic urine therapy. You've then got Black history, which I've got some really interesting stuff on there too, to match with some of the stories that you shared over the years. Leading up to where we are now is the Bible. And I'm in America at the moment, and I've never had a religious upbringing. I've always been open. However, I've been introduced to the church, and it's been interesting because I come from a bit of a spiritual background now, and I don't like labels, etc. And all of a sudden I'm wrong and I'm being judged. And what I reached out to you because I've seen your work on that before. And I just like the way that you simplify everything and strip it right back. So I wondered if you were open to go through a journey of your truth, and along the way we can have discussions about certain points. And then also hoping open up people to at least look at certain topics, because what you will see, it's all linked.
All of it is every topic is linked together in a way that's not immediately obvious, but you dive into it, the links appear. And to speak to you say I make things simple. It just so happens that my career as a computer programmer. I was a front end developer. I did the user interface. So my job was literally getting lots and lots of data, like figuring it out, and then making it or transforming it into a way that people could understand. And I've been able to use those skills in research. So it's been pretty useful.
Amazing. And when you look back at stuff like that as well, you realize that's why I did do that, and how handy it comes in good stead when it comes to explaining to people after.
Well, it's actually more than that. It's like everything's linked. So there's a reason for me to have been doing that back then, and it's connected to what I'm doing now, because it's all linked. You're here for a reason. And when you get confirmation that it's not, it's accidental or anything, it's because you're meant to be doing what you're doing, It's, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm explaining that well, but it's an amazing story we're in.
Well, can we start at 9/11 then? So what was the kind of trigger point for you? And for everyone watching, we've all had that moment of, and 9/11 was a big one for a lot of people early on.
Well, I was actually at 9/11, so I was almost in it, because I turned down a job for Lehman Brothers on the 40th floor of Tower 1 about a month before, and I took a job directly across the river in a place called Hoboken, which faces right across the river from it, and it didn't affect me really at all until 4 years later. It's delayed action. Yeah. No, at the time I kind of accepted it, even though I thought there was something a bit fishy about it. Life goes on. I'm gonna put it behind me and move on. But it was 4 years later, helping my daughter with physics homework, and essentially I figured out there was something wrong. It was if I go through it, it was the problem was a marble on a tabletop, and the tabletop's 1 meter high. How long does it take the marble to hit the floor? So, I worked the problem through with her, and she was like, "I've got it, Dad, I've got it." I was like, "Aha, not so fast." Let's imagine it's a bowling ball on top of the World Trade Center. So we got all the figures, and we put it through a calculation, and the answer was around about 10 seconds. But that, light bulb went off, and I was like, hang on. I went back and watched the films, and the whole building took 10 seconds to fall. And that was the turning point for me. It was like, how can a building fall through itself, the path of most resistance, at the same speed as a bowling ball through empty air? Can't happen. So that's what launched me into to looking at 9/11 and started me down the rabbit hole.
And 9/11 was I guess before the internet was there, but it was before people were out of a way of thinking. We were just shown kind of one narrative all the way through. And it's one that people find hard to go and look into. But the moment you do, you see all the red flags and all the inconsistencies all the way there. And then, so by having that light moment, how long did you spend on that topic? And then what come up for you during that time?
You could say I'm still on that topic. We're all these topics, you still find new information pop up every now and again. But I was kind of I was feverishly doing this for, well, maybe I can't really even tell, because it kind of merges from one to the other to the next, because 9/11 led on to figuring out, okay, well, who's behind it? And that led on to the project for the New American Century, and then finding that there was basically a subgroup of what we call the Illuminati. So I found out about the New World Order, which then led me to the monetary system. So I found out that was all make-believe, which led me onto the legal system, which led me on to the and so on and so on. I ended up looking at every one of these things we call systems, which should give us a clue, really. There's nothing natural about it. It's a system. So the legal system, the healthcare system, all these systems, they're all fake. So I just bounce between them. essentially what it was doing was not just demystifying it, it was just breaking it down in my psyche. So up until then, all these systems were real tangible things, can't question them, you know, they're there because they're there, and that's it. What this process did was make me take a long, hard look at it and then deconstruct it and realize, no, it's bullshit. And then so essentially it's the world that I'd come to accept as real was being sort of taken to pieces a bit at a time. And yeah, it was a journey of discovery, and I'm still on it.
Love that. Yeah, you're right in saying it is kind of a breakdown. The way that you even analyze information that's shared to us and put out there, straight away you can have another perspective. Hang on a minute, let me just check another way, or let me try and make sense of this myself, where that might not even been an intention before. It's just, oh, that's a coincidence, or that's a bit odd.
Yeah, I actually think that, well, I said this to my son once, I don't like calling ourselves truthers. I'd prefer the term noticers, because it's noticing stuff and not just going, oh, that's a coincidence, but going, hang on a minute, well, how did that happen? And looking into it, noticing something, because there's lots of stuff that's happening right in front of us, right? And the muggles it just washes over them. But I think the difference between a muggle and an awake person is that they actually notice it as it happens. And yeah, so I think noticing is more important, because there are what I call real truthers, and there are plastic ones. The plastic ones, and don't really mean to be disparaging, really, but the plastic ones are the ones who haven't really gone into researching. They saw a video about something and go, oh, okay, so I think so, that's right now. And so they've just been convinced by somebody telling them something. They haven't gone out and researched anything, but they're sort of awake about that one topic. But then when you provide them with another topic that's you know, just as controversial, it's like they go straight back into muggle mode. And oh no, that's rubbish and all that. And we got a lot of those through COVID. There's a lot of people who woke up through COVID, and yet they didn't do the work leading up to it. So you know, they're not awake to the rest of the conspiracy.
And it's that discernment part to it as well, isn't it? Is not being attached to anything. Whereas within the truth movement, there's a lot of people almost play the label of conspiracy theorist, of everything's wrong, and they hold on then to being right. Whereas what I like about your work is that you've almost got to a point, that's a knowing now. No matter what you tell me, that's my knowing. You can't show. Let's now move on and evolve and grow. Whereas a lot of people kind of get suckered into one topic, and that becomes their identity, which is great, but they're not then open to change, or if anything challenges that then, because when we start connecting things more, it just kind of moves the narrative slightly and allows you to kind of process everything a lot more.
Yeah, but you know, there's still a place for those people who really delve into that one topic, because to wake somebody up, it only takes one little thing, and we don't know what that one thing is, but it takes that one little thing. And if somebody goes down deep into something and you know, comes up with new information, that one thing that they come up with could be that turning point for those people.
It'd be like a ripple effect.
Yeah. So there's a space for everybody in this, essentially. Yeah, and that's a whole nother topic, because you know, I don't like saying this as above so below, but at every level of this universe, the same things happen. Yeah, and just like there's a place for everybody in this movement. Again, another word I hate using. You know, it's just like in the body, in the human body, every cell has its own place, but it's not that that cell is bound into place and, right, you're doing this. It's doing it because it wants to do it. It loves doing it. It's a conscious living being. And then at our level, we end up doing the same thing, which is, I think, is the key to what they would call a utopian society. Let everybody do and be who they are. Mm. And what will naturally happen is whatever needs doing, there'll always be somebody who want to do that, who loves doing that and want to do it. And that's it, because that's the way the body functions.
Yes, it's slotting into their purpose and knowing that we've all got a unique reason to be here as well, and be okay with that.
Exactly. Well, it's not about being okay with it. It's that when you live your purpose, that's when you're most excited and everything goes right for you, and it's good to be in that mode. Right. So it's not that you're doing your thing. No, it's like a joyous thing,
I was referring to us being okay when someone is themselves, and I think that's the beauty of truth as well. It opens up to flowing conversations rather than no and resistance.
Yeah,
if that's what they love doing, and that is their purpose. You can accept that and enjoy the fact that they are turning up as what they're meant to be doing, and along that journey as well. So the intro to 9/11, the light bulb moment. How did that change your life at the time as well? Because that's another thing when it comes to truth. It's not just the information you're looking at, it's what it does to you internally, and your life went on a completely different direction from there.
Yeah, well, what it basically does, well, everyone's got a choice when they find out information like this. You've got the choice to either change your life, in response to it, or just live the lie. That's a choice, and my choice was I can't live the lie. So, every piece of information I get, every new topic, my life has to change because of it. So, what 9/11 did, finding this out, it just so happened I think I just turned 42, which any Douglas Adams fans out there know that's a useful number. But turned 42, and I was having almost like my midlife crisis at the same time as I was finding this stuff out. And that midlife crisis, I don't think it's a crisis. I think I'd rather call it a midlife awakening. It was asking the question, what am I doing here? What is the point? Is my life, going the way I'd hope it would go? Is this life what I expected? What are we doing here? What's my purpose? All these questions. So when I was in America there, I was actually making quite a lot of money. Actually, I was doing very well. I had a big house. I had a Ferrari on the driveway. I had a whole room full of man toys, and from outside, people would have thought, "Oh, he's doing really well. Great." But I was asking the questions. I was thinking, well, I've got all this money now, but do I feel any different? Well, actually, no, and it came to a head when I was out in my Ferrari and stopped at traffic lights. A couple of people walking across the road, and they walked across the road and stood beside, on the side of the road looking at the car. And I was sitting there, I looked at them, I looked straight ahead, looked to them, looked straight ahead, and I thought, hang on a minute, I'm in a car. From where I'm sitting, I can't tell I'm in a Ferrari or a Ford Fiesta. Did I buy this car for me or for them? And after a sort of long night of the dark night of the soul, it was like I bought it for them, and then the car lost its sheen. And I started asking the same questions about all aspects of my life, and it's like pulling the thread of a tapestry. You pull the thread and it all starts to unravel. And that's what happened to my life, essentially. It just unraveled, and I ended up having to change it totally.
And people who are watching this now, I'm pretty sure that you can all agree that we've all had that sort of experience going through and now asking questions and looking back thinking, okay, what is there for me at the moment? What am I doing? Is it serving me? Is there more? And the beauty where we're at the moment, there's a lot more people now that we can share these conversations with and share the information, whereas back then it was a lot more challenging to be able to get it out because the resistance that come with it.
Mm. And it is changing, because I remember when I started looking at flat Earth. Now, there wasn't that many videos around about it, 2014. And I wouldn't come out. I wouldn't go to anyone and say, yeah, I think the Earth's flat. No, I actually sat in front of my family and I said, I've got something to say. I think the Earth's flat. And I told it to them. And yeah, my son was actually like, and he went off and did his own research as well. But yes, it was a hard slog right in the beginning. But I've noticed that over the years, it would start off with, the Earth's flat. And it's like, don't be stupid, you idiot, and all that. But then it's like, oh, I've heard of that. Oh, yeah. And now it seems like I'll meet somebody and they'll go, yeah, I'm a flat earther too, which is like, meeting somebody from Basildon where you come from Basildon, and you're up the top of Mount Everest and, oh, you're from Basildon, right? Yeah, it's as rare as that.
Well, the flat Earth was where I first found you, and I remember at the time it was around 2014. There maybe was 90 or so videos on YouTube on that topic, and you did a video, questions to Neil deGrasse Tyson, really simple, thought-provoking questions, but it was the element of asking questions, because they never come back with an answer for us. And then you did the really powerful one. I think it was Hungarian TV. And I remember that one.
Macedonian
TV. And then you had, what's his name? Odd TV. He edited that with the videos, and like, wow, this is amazing. And then from the back of that, it took me to Common Law and the Straw Man. And I was going through some legal issues at the time, and your face just happened to pop onto that one as well. So it's amazing how a truth can lead you back, forwards and backwards through the timeline, and they all come in. The flat Earth one. So this is topic now. It's a lot more mainstream, and a lot of people get attached to the label of flat Earth. However, we're the ones that are saying it's not what we're told. We don't live on a spinning globe, and we don't travel through space at 500,000 miles an hour going around the sun. So all these things, for me, that was the foundation of truth, and it allowed me to really see through the bullshit of every other topic. And the word shill, I remember back then it was a lot easier to spot the shills, because if you weren't talking about this topic and you called yourself a truther, there's something up there, because it was an obvious one. And for me, that was a really good teaching into learning how to deal with the resistance, and also the arguments were the same every single time. And with that, you'd be able to not only know what's coming, but you can argue their point for them before going back to them and then showing why they're wrong. What was the video, or what was the point that got you into that topic? Because back then there wasn't a lot of information. And how did you come across that one?
Well, one of the things I used to love doing was listening to science experiments. So as I was working, I'd have lectures going on, in my head, sort of on, on my Wi-Fi, on my, we had Walkmans. So I was listening to all these lectures. I've been doing that for years, but 2014, I was watching a video about science experiments, and one of them was the Bedford Levels experiment. And so I was interested in it, and but then it started talking about flat Earth, or suggesting flat Earth, and I was like, oh grief, what rubbish! And I was about to turn it off, but then it talked about how on the Bedford Levels, it's straight for 6 miles. And over that 6 miles, there would be a curvature of 25 feet. And I was like, hang on a minute, that can't be right. You know, over 6 miles, 25 feet gets dropped. That must make the Earth really small. So I was like, no, that can't be right. So I went on AutoCAD and I drew up the Earth and tested it, you know, measured it. And sure enough, it was about right. So I thought, wow, I'm sure I've seen things a lot further away than I should, you know, with the Earth in the way. So I went down to Plymouth Hoe. And from Plymouth Hoe, right on the beach, there's a lighthouse 12 miles away. So I went down there with my camera, my P, it was a P900 at the time, and put the camera right down by the water and zoomed into the lighthouse. And I could see not only where the water met the rocks, but I could see the horizon way behind it as well. Now, according to that, the spherical trigonometry, 32 feet, the first 32 feet of that lighthouse should have been hidden by the physical curve of the Earth, right? And that the horizon should have been about, I think it was about 1.5 miles away. So, you know, the lighthouse should have been behind that horizon, but instead the horizon was behind the lighthouse. So that's what got me into actually researching it like crazy, because that was that moment that was, hang on, this is real. And yeah, and rest is history.
And when you get a truth like that, and especially when there's not much out there, it's kind of like an excitement, like where do I go next? And you just dive in and go into many holes. Can you share your experience?
More likely, who can you tell? Who can you tell?
Well, I made that mistake quite early on. There's a post 2014 on my Instagram where I'm a flat earther, it's definitely flat, and yeah, I got every sort of ridicule there. Would you be able to share some of the resistance? Because back then, obviously, you're going through these different levels of truth, and you're going through your own awakening process. And I call awakening like grief. Like you go through different stages. There's denial, there's anger, then there's sadness, loneliness, and then there's excitement. Can you share at that point? Because that was quite a pinnacle area for, or that topic alone at that time. It was just like this growth and this small movement. But along the way that we're sharing some really powerful stuff then.
Yeah, well, for me, again, the flat Earth was one of the later ones. I'd gone through so many, and it is the 5 stages of grief, as you say. It literally is. You go through each stage. I think it's denial, anger, acceptance, bargaining. I can't remember what the next D is, but yeah, whatever D is, and then acceptance, depression, and then acceptance. And literally you literally go through those stages. But I'd been through those stages like a dozen times up to that point. So it was like, oh, yes, flat, okay. But what I noticed was how emotionally it would affect people who didn't believe it. And there was one occasion I was in America. I was in Texas, and I was with a family, and most of the family were flat earthers. The father was not, and so me and the father there was having a chat, and I said, "Oh, so you don't sort of believe in the flat earth thing?" He goes, "No, I've had a look, and I don't believe it." So we had a nice, gentle chat. And then I said, because he was a photographer, then I said about the ships going over the horizon. I said, well, yeah, at long distances, you get this band of reflection where the sort of anything above the horizon, the false horizon, gets inverted. And that's why it looks like the mast goes down last, because the mast is reflected. He goes, oh, no, there's no reflection. I'm a photographer. I said, Well, actually, there is. If you go onto YouTube, go and have a look at a video, and you'll see this. So he chose a video at random, and it just so happened to be a debunking video, and it was like, see, I was right. And I was like, no, you just got the wrong video. And I said, and he then all out of nowhere he went, "There's no reflection," and he was actually crying tears and everything, and he was like screaming at top of, "There's no reflection." And I was like, oh, whoa, hang on, let's agree to disagree, So he went off going, "There's no reflection, there's no reflection." And so I was standing talking to the rest of the family, and he came back out and he went to his son. He goes, "Son, there's no reflection, don't you?" And he ended up throwing me out of his house. So I was outside waiting by the car for my friend to come out. And he came out and he was prowling up and down the street, growling at me, as if he wanted to fight me. Yeah. But yeah, that was the most extreme reaction I've had. But yeah, I've had sort of reactions from mild disinterest to that. So I've had the whole spectrum.
Any advice for people, because we're still seeing that now with a lot of stuff that's going on at the moment, and people are waking up, they do exactly the same thing. They just want to tell their loved ones, and they're now being met with that same anger. So all the years that you've been doing that, is there things that you can share that give this a go, or just?
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's been in the truth knows that they've all gone through that stage where the first thing you want to do is you want to be that guy in the science fiction shows running down the street going, "Watch the skies," But that never works. It never works. It always backfires on you, and people, it's not good. The better way is, somebody told me, they said, don't give them the whole picnic. Give them a bite of a sandwich, and if they want more, they'll come back for more. If they don't, then you just move on. Yeah. It's the ones who wake up will wake up. You can't tell anybody anything. You can't. Right? What's going to happen? It's just like the line from the Matrix. Nobody can tell you what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. So no amount of telling somebody is going to convince them. They've got to see something that goes, and then they'll find out for themselves. So all you can do is put a seed, drop a seed every now and again. And the best one I've come up with is, if you're out and you see the full moon, you go, why is it that the clouds right next to the moon are lit up brightly and those ones over there are dark? Because if the moon is 238,000 miles away, shouldn't it light up all the clouds sort of uniformly? And if they're not interested, they'll go, but if they are, they might go, that is odd, and then you can start, talking to them about it. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that analogy as well. It's important to protect your energy, because it can be draining if you're getting into their emotions when it's not yours to deal with. It's their cognitive dissonance, and also that need to tell people is to sometimes check in with yourself, and are you telling them from a place of fear and like a rush, and because that's the energy they're picking back off you, and that's why they perhaps will label you as crazy and nuts, because the way that we're delivering this information. So that's another reason why I like your work over the years, is you're you, and you calmly do it. Look at this. What's your thoughts about that? I'd say you're like a sharer. You share information and you allow other people to go, hang on a minute.
Well, again, it goes back to user interface. I'm creating user interface, and that's me. So yeah, it's the same skills.
Love that. Can we touch on just a bit on common law, because over the last few years, a lot more people have seen that the world that we live in is corrupt. The legal system has no benefit for us, the people, and a lot more people are empowering themselves to learn their rights and know common law. And one of the documentaries, it's a great starting point for anyone, was The Straw Man, which I know you had a role to play in that as well. And kind of explain what the work you're doing at the moment, and then also touch on that high vis story as well.
Okay, well, a lot of the time I was making videos about stuff, and over the last couple of years, I've kind of decided that it's more useful to be actually out there in the world doing stuff. So I've taken to just going out and giving talks and actually doing full-on activism as much as I can. So right now I'm scheduling loads and loads of talks around the country about essentially about a new topic I'm going into, which is about mortgages, because there's so much fraud. So I'm hopefully helping people or giving them options, because we know that they're coming for everyone's house. Yeah, and it doesn't matter how secure you think you are, they're coming for you. And you know, they've already okay, so 25 years ago was the post-bust boom. So after the housing market crashed, 25 years ago, loads of people started buying because houses were cheap. And one of the things they would buy, or when they got a mortgage, was an endowment mortgage. That seemed like the best option. But we found that a lot of those endowments got changed to interest only. So now 25 years down the line, those mortgages are coming to term, and people are going to find out that, oh no, we've got to come up with the whole amount of the mortgage now, you know, even though they've been paying for 25 years. And also I'm going to pretty much predict that these endowments are going to fail. And they're going to say, well, sorry, the insurance policy didn't recover the amount of the mortgage, so you're going to have to come up with a massive lump sum, which people aren't going to be able to do. Then there was the whole COVID thing with the debt, what they call it, debt holiday, mortgage holiday. Well, it's not much of a holiday if you're going to have to pay the whole amount afterwards, you know. But that's what people are now facing. Plus, interest rates are going up. So between those, right, it's going to cover everybody. Everyone's going to find they're going to be struggling to pay this big drain on their finances. So that's where it's all going to fall down. But if you understand how mortgages work, how they've been screwing us royally all this time, right, and how much they make out of you, whether you pay the mortgage or not, right, then you can be armed with some tools to fight back, and possibly void your mortgage because it's already been done. I don't want to go into too many details because I'm not going to release it out on the internet for a while. I'm going to try and get it to face and tell people face first and get something going before, you know, as soon as it goes online, then the trolls arrive and people start debunking it, and everyone gets nervous and things like that. So yeah, that's what one of the things I'm doing. I'm also trying to get this idea of peace constables underway in various places around the country. So you saw me when we met. I was in my peace constable outfit and acting in that role. And I've been kind of called out. I've actually physically been called out once so far. I've been out to certain events as a peace constable. And I've had a few calls where I've been able to help people over the phone. But I want to try and inspire people to actually take a stand and help out the community that you're in. So yeah, that's another thing I'm working on. I've got loads of things, you know, irons in the fire at the moment. So yeah.
Well, what we'll do is we'll share the links after. Can you just explain to people that feel like there is more of a purpose and they're fed up right now with the system, like what is a peace constable and what is that for people that want to make a difference and an impact in the community? What does that involve for them?
Well, the idea of a peace constable is what the police should have been. The police supposedly took an oath to serve and protect the people, and obviously they're not doing that. They're in the role of police officers, which are basically revenue collectors for the government. But that's not their job. So essentially, a peace constable is there to serve and protect. So if somebody's being put upon by bailiffs, all right, well, a peace constable would be cognizant of all the case law and the legislation that governs that kind of activity, and will be able to step in and be the buffer, the shield between the victim and the corporation, and protecting that way. So protect against the corporations, against the police, against the council, against anybody who is infringing on the rights of the people.
And for everyone, like, if you think about all the things that cause you stress in your life, a lot of that you can accredit to these systems, the legal system, and it's so important to get a foundation of what your rights are and know your rights, and to really look in further what Dave's doing with the Peace Constable, and really being able to stand on your truth, but also help your loved ones. And I think that we've lived in a world where we've been quite isolated over the years. However, community is going to be a real big part of this new earth, and knowing that you're not on your own then. So if that mortgage situation happens to you, just know in the back of your mind, hang on a minute, stop the panicking, just have a look, because there is other ways now. And that's what we're showing around the country. We are doing things, and people to know that the fear spot they're in, if you flip it, there are solutions now that are being presented to us, with especially some of the work that you're doing.
Indeed. And the one time I got called out, it was EDF, the power company, at the door, and they'd already actually found a way to break in. They'd already opened the front door, and there was a woman there on her own, and she managed to get the door shut and go out and stand in front of the door and face them. The three blokes basically, harassing her. So she called me, and I tried to, advise her what to do on the phone. They weren't having it because, it was a woman, and these two blokes were like, thought they could push her around. So she put me on speakerphone. And so I spoke to them, and they again were kind of laughing and stuff. And then I said, I'm on my way. So I drove up there. It took me about 15 minutes to get there. Now I'm dressed in my Peace Constable outfit, so I'm pretty recognizable as something a bit different. So I park about 100 yards from the house, and I walk down the street, and he sees me. He turns around and sees me. The guy at the door, he turns around and sees me, and then he runs away.
Wow.
Just saw me coming and runs away. He runs away from me, jumps into his friend's van, because his van was behind me. So he jumped in his friend's van, and his friend drove him to his van. And so because there was traffic, or not traffic, but cars parked on either side of the road, he couldn't go fast. So I ran after him, and the guy jumped out of the van, right, ran to his van, and was like trying to get his key in the lock. And I was going, hold on a second, and he just jumped in his car and sped off. But I didn't have to do anything. Just be there. Yeah. And for anyone wanting to be a Peace Constable, pretty much a lot of it is your presence, is you standing up in front of somebody, and defending somebody. It's a righteous thing to do. It is the righteous thing to do, right? Protect somebody who's weaker than you. So yeah. Hopefully, I want to be called out some more, so I can actually get something on video and hopefully inspire other people to do it.
Yeah, I love that. And that's all it takes, is to show a few successes, and it just gives people that inspiration then to think, actually, I can do this as well now. And once it's been replicated many times, the people always are going to outnumber every part of the system. And like you said, they run away because they know what they're doing is all unlawful, and it's trickery.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The whole thing is based on trickery. And on the flip side, it's all voluntary as well. Everything, the whole COVID thing, for instance, it's all voluntary, right? Nobody's forcing you to get a jab, right? Nobody's forcing you to put a mask on, right? When they said there's a mask mandate, if you look at the exceptions and exemptions, it said, well, if you feel like you're exempt, then you're exempt. So there's no real physical coercion there. It's just mental coercion, right? And all it takes is you to challenge it for it to all fall away. So it's the same with everything. Everything is voluntary. So yeah.
Well, that leads us on to the next one, because a big part of that is the language and their own language of legalese. And a documentary which I've shared with many people is the language of creation it did. And that blew my mind. And that was a real insight for me of beyond words and meaning. It was the sound and the tone and the way that the vibrations influence matter. And it's taken me on this whole journey since we got into the Bible after. I use this as my reference point. Is for me, the soul is energy before it gets to the mind with interpretation and definition. Can you just touch on legalese, but leaving into some of the things that you've explored over the years on language, and maybe just a few kind of nuggets where people go, hang on a minute, because there's loads of different topics within that. The baby language, reverse speech. It's a really cool area to go down, and I'd highly recommend people to go and watch this documentary, because it's really well put together.
Thank you. Well, legalese, again, it's all trickery, as I said, all trickery. And the biggest trick, right, in this legal system is the fact that there is this foreign language that looks like English, sounds like English, but it's not English. Every word has been redefined to mean something else. And it's not too far of a stretch to get that, because if you were talking if you're standing here talking to a group of doctors and you use the word, you said, yeah, I was chatting to this guy and he got inflamed, right? Now you mean he got angry, yeah? But the doctors are hearing, there was inflammation in his body. Yeah. So amongst in a medical venue, right, they've got their whole set of words, right? Some of them sound like English, but others Latin based or whatever, but some of them are English. And when we say something, they hear something else. And that works with the legal system. When you're in a legal venue, right? So if you're speaking to a policeman or a judge or an attorney or anything, and even with a corporation, you're speaking in a legal venue, a legal context. So the language you're speaking, or the language they assume you're speaking, is this legalese. Okay, and as I said, every word is redefined to mean something else. So you don't know what you're saying. You're just talking naturally, but some of these words are selected so that you naturally use them without thinking about them, but you actually end up incriminating yourself without knowing it. So most people know the word understand. Yeah. So, if somebody says, do you understand? The word understand actually means to stand under, to accept, to be bound by, to consent to, to agree to. So, cop says, I'm going to charge you for, doing 50 and a 30. Do you understand? Yeah. You say, yeah, well, then you've accepted the charges and that's it. Yeah, you've consented, right? But you didn't know. And I get the whole language is like that. And it's quite amazing, really. I think a good one, a really sneaky one, is the word includes. Okay. So the word include, if you look it up in the legal dictionary, It's there's a line of Latin text. It's let's see if I get this right. Inclusio est exclusio alterius. I can't remember. Inclusio unium est exclusio alterius, which means the inclusion of one is the exclusion of all others. So let's imagine the government makes an edict and says everyone's got to pay 500 quid, including homeless people. Right? Well, we here, well, everyone's got to pay this 500 quid, including those homeless people who think they're exempt. But what it actually means is only homeless people have to pay it, because the inclusion of one is the exclusion of others. Yeah, but it's the opposite to what we think. So yes, that's how they trick us. So you can imagine getting some kind of, you know, charge or something, and it says that you're included amongst this people, or some these people are included, but it means only those people are included, not you. But if you don't know that, then you end up, you know, agreeing to stuff.
We've seen that on the tabloids as well, where they say like all these doctors, including Dr. And really it's just him that said it. And we think, oh, the majority are saying it. And it's
exactly.
And it's interesting when people pay attention to every word that comes out, because again, in the medicalese and the line of work I've done with cancer, and especially when kids have cancer and the birth certificate comes out and parents get scared and they use the word, we recommend. If you pay attention to that word recommend, it doesn't mean you have to, but yet we go, okay, they told us we got to do it. And it's allowing people to like listen to their words, but don't act on it first of all, and act. You're acting.
Yes, you're not really doing, you're acting. Yeah. I mean, there's so much more to that. I mean, even in that realm, okay, some people say you're suffering with cancer. I'm suffering with cancer. Well, what does the word suffer mean? If you actually look it up, it means to permit. Yeah. Never suffer a witch to live, from the Bible. Yeah. Never permit. That's what it means. So when you say you're suffering with cancer, you're saying I'm allowing it. Yeah. There's the word doctor, for instance. Okay, well, everyone thinks that means wise healer or something like that, but use the word doctor as a verb. So if you doctor a document, what do?
Edit it.
Yep, you falsify it. If you doctor food, you poison it. So what's a doctor? A lying poisoner. It's in the words. Yeah. So yes, there's something I can't even think of.
Cancer cure. Cure is to preserve.
Exactly, like cure meat. Yeah, it's all in the words, and we just say these things without thinking about it. But there's an energy to those words, and yeah, English is and this comes out of the language of creation talk. English is a backwards language. And for the most part, everything you say in English means the opposite of what you actually mean. And it was created. It's a created language, created 500 years ago, and it's not English. It's Anglish, angelish. It's the language of the fallen angels, and that's why they want to spread it out across the entire world to make it the one world language, because it's it's a disempowering language that is apparently the least expressive language out of all of them. But it's also a left brain process. Okay, so to learn this language, you have to go to school, and what they do is they say, okay, moving body of water, that's called a river. Moving body of water, river. Moving body of water, river. And you go, oh, there's a moving body of water. And that's a river, because you go for that left brain process of going, oh, I recognize that, and fetch the word, river. Yeah. Okay. So many people have seen this. I'll do my little demonstration of the difference between the original language and the ones we're speaking now. Okay. Do you mind me doing that?
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going, you've probably seen this anyway. So I'm going to do it anyway. You can pretend you don't know. Right? So I'm going to describe a film in English, and you've got to tell me what the film is. Okay. Oh, actually, let me see if you get this one. Right. A boy befriends an alien and helps him go back home.
E.T.
Right, but you could have said Flight of Navigator. You could have said, and there's like 2 or 3 others that are along the same lines. But you know what happened there in left-hand side of your brain? You listen to the sounds I was making, fetch the words, fetch the meanings of those words, and then compared them to a list of films you'd seen, and you guessed because it was a guess at ET. Yeah, but as you saw, it could have been Flight of the Navigator, or there's a couple of others, right? But again, I'm not going to, that was a fairly obvious one, but I'm not going to tell you if you're right or not. But Paleo-Hebrew is a language of pictures, and that's the original, what I believe is the original language of mankind. It's a language of pictures, little pictograms that mean something to the Hebrew. So I'm going to use emojis, okay? So, boy's face, alien face, telephone, satellite dish, bicycle, moon. Obvious, yeah. So in that example, the left-hand side of your brain was cut out of the process. It can't analyze pictures, right? It can analyze language, but I was just describing a set of pictures. So there's no analysis there. But what happened was, as you were listening to the descriptions of the pictures, you imaged them in your mind, right? And then the word, or the actual answer, just welled up from inside. Yeah, you knew what the film was, right? No guesswork. And that set of pictures can't mean Flight of the Navigator. It can't mean any of the other films. It can only mean E.T. Yeah. So that was the language that the Old Testament was originally written in, right? And that was the original way we used to think, in pictures, not in words. So this way of speaking or communicating in words and thinking in words was created for us by a group of people we know as the Greeks. But in the Old Testament, they're known as somebody else. But the Greeks created this system of thought. Yeah, we call it Greek philosophy. Yeah, it wasn't old men thinking, wondering about life. No, it was them developing a technology of being able to control the human mind with words, with language. And that's what they've done. They've created these Western languages, which we have to use a logical process to understand. Whereas the real understanding is intuitive. Yeah, knowing something without knowing how you know it. Right, that's the real knowing. This fake one is you get 2 or 3 facts linked together with a story, and now you think you know something. But the ones who create the story, yeah, create a definition of the words, then they design it for you.
And then reference to his story, it's all kind of been mapped out, and because we're not there, we're now taking on their truth, but also every part to it, we can't even kind of back it up. There's no intuition to provide an answer to.
No, and they can rewrite reality just by changing the meaning of the words. Like the word vaccine has been changed now, so it doesn't mean what we think it means. It means something else now. And the children that grow up learning this new definition won't understand what we're talking about. Yeah, and that goes for a lot of things in our society. The next generation will have a different reality to us because the words have been redefined since we were growing up.
It's fascinating, and when you go back to the origins, that surely is a starting point for us, where a lot of us are arguing points that we've only found this information out within our lifetime, or maybe passed on through our parents. But we have to go back to source and go back to the origins, and even having to question at that point as well. So you mentioned Paleo-Hebrew as the original language and with images. and how vibrations influence matter through the language that's been created. After that, it kind of led on to the history and origins of people as well, and in kind of that time zone. And there was something that you said a long time ago with the Dark Ages, and I share this quite a lot. You said when you visited, you're in the Caribbean now, but you said there was a sign that you used to see. It said, "No Africans, no Irish." And after
Yeah.
that, I went into this whole research phase, especially in Russia. And one of my friend's dad was a colonel, lieutenant, and he'd been all around the world. He called his dad senior chief, so he didn't even call him dad. And I told him about the Russia story, and his jaw just dropped. He went, "My dad used to say that he went to the Kremlin, he got taken underground, and all he saw was all artifacts of black royalty." And we thought he was just saying this as a joke. And he said, my dad was actually telling the truth then. Can you kind of just explain like the Dark Ages and some of the stuff that you come across of going back there? Because that's really interesting for people, because it leads us on to the next topic as well.
It depends on how far back you want me to go, because I can go right to the beginning with the story, or just deal with the Renaissance period.
I'll let you pick. This is informational and educational for all of us.
Okay, well, I'm going to go right back to the beginning, because it's a fascinating science fiction story, which might, I guess, upset a few people, because it's it's not a flattering story for some people, but so be it. So the story Old Testament, right, is not what the religions are telling you. Religion is there to keep you away from the story. Essentially, and I'll zip through it. Most people looked more like me, darker than me, actually, and essentially there was an incursion by angels, fallen angels. Genesis 6:4 talks about angels coming down, having sex with women, and spawning a second bloodline. Okay. Now that second bloodline looked very, very different to all the other humans walking around on the earth. Okay. Now in the book of Enoch, it tells you, right, that when Noah was born, right, Noah was kind of born differently to everybody else, so that everyone would know that something incredible was going to happen, in his days. Right. But he was born with white skin, with white or blonde hair, and blue eyes, right? Bright blue eyes. And his father, Lamech, was so scared, right? He ran to his father, Methuselah, and they went to inquire of Enoch, the wisest man who ever lived at that time. And Enoch and Lamech said to Enoch, I've begotten a strange son. He looks like the children of the fallen angels. So now we know what the children of the fallen angels look like. Yeah, they were white-skinned, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, right? Which looked very, very different from everyone else. Okay. So essentially, that bloodline is still here today. And what they've done is, or their method of warfare is, essentially they come into a population, a few at a time, and they hi, we're here, and they infiltrate. They're getting themselves into the positions of power, and when they've got enough power, they essentially exterminate all the males and rape the women, and then rewrite history so you don't know about the original people. Okay. And that's what this bloodline have been doing across the earth. Now, in 1751, Benjamin Franklin wrote an essay. I think it's 1751 or 1755. Can't remember. And that essay was something like Observations of the Increase of Mankind. And in that, he said that all of Europe was black. So the Spaniards were black, the Italians were black, the Swedish were black, right? And he said the only white people were in Saxony in Germany, England, and the newcomers in America. Now, again, this isn't to say we're not talking about, a race or just white people. We're talking about a particular bloodline of people, right? And there was only a few of them, 1755. And then I've got a whole nother topic now about world fairs and hidden cities and stuff. But essentially, 100 years later, there's now millions of white people that, well, a lot of them sprung up from nowhere. And that, again, I'm going into too many topics now.
Yeah, it's interesting though, and this is why I was excited to have you on, because I think what it is doing though, mate, is it's just showing that there's so much to the story that we're not told about, and I encourage people, especially with what's gone on over the last few years. You can't take anyone else's story as truth. You have to go and look into it. And I've come out to Arizona. I've never been brought up through religion, and I've been open to it, but I've been going to church, and I've found God, and I have all these moments, and I get all these downloads. And recently, I'm having people, and I feel like I'm at my peak at the moment in terms of my growth. Like, the people now coming up to me saying, "No, you haven't accepted Jesus into your life, and you're sinning," and all these different things. I'm like, whoa, I'm getting attacked. I don't even know you. I'm happy. And it was just the way that people tell these stories as definitive, and I can't accept that anymore. And what I liked about the research that you've done is it definitely gets you questioning a lot more, but it just shows there's so much more that we can go into and dive into. And the one thing I realized I didn't know is even the story of Christianity. I didn't know many of the characters. I've heard of Moses, I've heard of Jesus. So I think I may be fortunate that I haven't had that as a conditioning growing up. So it's a lot easier for me just to observe it all. However, going back to origins and trying to then bring it forward, that for me makes more sense.
Yeah, it's exciting as well. Because, and give an example, the Irish, for instance, you mentioned, the signs when, my parents' generation came over to England. They saw no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. Okay, so whenever they went to try and move into into a boarding house or something, no blacks, no Irish, no dogs, and yeah, so everyone was. I wondered, why were the Irish lumped in with with black people and dogs? Yeah. So what I discovered was that Ireland was black, was a black country, and what happened, and so was most of the British Isles. The Scots were black, and Britain, so not England. Britain was mixed tribes of black and brown and white people. Okay, when the last black king, Charles II, funnily enough, when Charles II, right, got deposed, right, a white Germanic bloodline took the throne. Right, they usurped the throne, and we've still got the same Germanic bloodline on the throne today. Now, the first thing this Germanic bloodline did was they sponsored Oliver Cromwell to start attacking the Irish and the Scottish. Yeah, the two very black strongholds. Yeah. So Oliver Cromwell essentially decimated the population of Ireland. The population went down to 40%. It went down by 40%, which essentially was virtually all the males. Okay, so those men that he didn't kill, they transported to their new colony in the Caribbean. Okay, Cromwell couldn't pay his soldiers. Right, didn't have enough money to pay his soldiers, so he gave them lands in Ireland, and those lands came with titles. So all of a sudden you had this colonel in the army or something who became the Earl of Cork or something like that. And if you've seen Braveheart, and you heard the phrase prima nocta, yeah, where if a common girl gets married, the nobleman can have sex with her on the on the night of her wedding, so ensuring that the first generation is going to be half caste, right? So what happened was these women were getting raped, and the darker skinned ones, offspring, got transported, the lighter skinned ones got to stay. And you do that for 300 years, what do you end up with? So essentially, and the Irish people don't like this, the so-called Irish people don't like this, essentially the real Irish are in the Caribbean mostly. Some went to the Americas, but mostly in the Caribbean. And the people in Ireland right now are Germans, are descendants of Germans, which are who the English are. The English are descendants of Germans.
Wow.
So that's why the Irish have had the stigma, because in America there's this phrase, one drop of Negro blood makes you a Negro. So even though these new Irish are white looking, yeah, they've still got the black DNA in them somewhere. So one drop of Negro blood makes you a Negro. So when the black people came over, it was the same. They're the same. We're going to call them, they're black people as well, even though they look white. Yeah. And apparently the Irish became white in 1940. That's when they were accepted into the white race.
1940.
1940. There's also in America, there's a racial slur for black people, and it was smoked Irish.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I know Irish people hate me talking about it. As soon as I put it on YouTube, I get loads of Irish people. No, it's not true. And they've got this phrase, black Irish. And they think, oh, it's because of people with black hair and brown eyes. No, they've got, I don't know, Frenchmen with brown hair and black eyes, dark eyes. They don't call black French. No, the Irish were black people. And that's why you got this phrase, black Irish.
So you see how they've kind of systematically done that. And I guess you're seeing that in today's world as well, where we're playing against each other. Going back then, how did they know how to do this? And when we're looking at, because we apparently live for this long, however, there's got to be some truth to it that we come back again, because you wouldn't plan that far ahead unless you did. So how did they? Do you think that they come up with, right, generations, and then it'll completely change? Because that's really fascinating.
Well, if you look in the Old Testament, well, the Israelites, they were being helped by the Most High, okay, because the Most High's children as such. So the Most High was giving them hints, sending prophets to go, by the way, in 50 years or in 20 years, this is going to happen, or this is going to happen. Do this. So they were getting help from the Most High. The other side, this small bloodline of people, they're getting help through the fallen angels. This is why, the elite go to their Bohemian Grove sacrifice things, and they go to their eyes wide shut parties and do all this satanic thing, because the Satan are the fallen angels. So they're getting help, just like the Most High is helping the Israelites. So the fallen angels have knowledge. In fact, the word demon means knowledge. So they've got knowledge. They're not bound in time, so they can go, okay, if you do this now, then in 150 years, this is going to happen, And so it's on the human side, they're in these secret societies, which again, they're getting help, and they're just implementing their part of the plan without knowing the full story.
Love that. You've said the Old Testament a few times as well, and this has always been. And again, people, if this triggers you, just listen to how I'm explaining this, because this is my viewpoint and my thought process. We've been given these stories, and especially when it comes to Jesus as a person, and unless you do this, it's kind of like rules, or you're not letting him into your life, you can't be saved. And I get a lot of this stuff, and I've never understood kind of the process to it, because the New Testament, there's loads of different books, there's loads of different interpretations. So they're telling me this is a truth, but I'm asking, well, what book are you reading from that, and what makes your book the right one for you to say that's a truth and I'm wrong? And then there was an Old Testament beforehand. So are you able to kind of even dumb it down for people that maybe are not religious as well, just to kind of share how the Old Testament and or the New Testament was created after the Old Testament, and what your take is on the kind of the story and where people sit with that?
Right. Well, I was an atheist for 40 years. Right. I didn't want anything to do with any of this stuff. But the flat earth was essentially the last straw to make me go, you know what? This book keeps popping up in front of me. I better read it and see what it's all about. So I read through it cover to cover 3 times. And something, as soon as I hit, Matthew in the New Testament, there's something wrong, something grated against, it's like, well, this doesn't feel right. So I decided to research the Old Testament. All this research I've been doing, got pretty skillful at it. So, you know what, I'm going to research the Old Testament. New Testament didn't feel right. So putting that aside. And what I found when I restored some of the old books as well, it should be in there, like the Book of Enoch, Book of Jasher, and Book of Jubilees, and the Apocrypha, which was in the original King James book. When I restored all of those books, I got a full rounded story from beginning to end, right? From right beginning with Adam, or just before Adam, and right to the end days. There was no space for the New Testament. And then I looked into how the New Testament came about and who was behind it. And you find out that the New Testament was written by the arch enemies of the Israelites, right? People called the Edomites. They became the Greeks and the Romans. And so, and the Most High says he hates the Edomites. Right? And so somehow these Edomites, these Romans, were able to decide what books should go into the Bible and what should be taken out. Obviously, they're going to take out the books that incriminate them. And when you look at these books, you find information that tells you who these people are. And also what the whole actual story of the Old Testament or the book is about. So the Old Testament, that's not its real name, by the way. Its real name is the Book of Remembrance. And you can find that in Malachi. And it was written by the Israelites in those days, right, for their descendants in these days. So because it was about them, that they would lose their memory, they'll lose their homeland, their language, their customs, they'd lose everything and forget who they are. And then in the last days, they were going to remember themselves. And the Book of Remembrance was sitting there waiting for this time now. And that's what we're seeing in the world today.
Right. And you've said it's an actual story. From when you've looked into it, it is actual story which you can trace back to certain events as well.
Yes, and you can also, because once you know the story in the Old Testament and look in, say, the Apocrypha books, and especially a book called Second Esdras, an amazing book, you can sort of place where you are in the book, where we are. Okay. I'm going to have to step back a second. Okay, so one of the ways you can identify the Israelites of the Old Testament is the curses that they would have to endure, because the Israelites went into a blood covenant with the Most High. They said, "We will follow your commandments," and the Most High said, "Well, if you do, you're going to be blessed, but if you don't, you're going to be punished." And every time they didn't, they were punished. And each time they were punished, the punishment got worse and worse and worse. Yeah, it's like you know, you broken your rules in the house, and your dad punishes you. If you keep doing it, he's gonna keep coming up with worse and worse punishments for you. So the last punishment was to be slavery and affliction for 400 years. Okay. And Deuteronomy 28, the second half of Deuteronomy 28, goes into the curses, what that punishment, what that slavery and affliction was going to look like. And I can't remember, I think it's Deuteronomy 28:48 that says you'll be able to identify the Israelites through these curses. So if you know anyone who's gone through all these things, then you'd know who an Israelite is. So these curses match exactly what happened to the so-called African Americans in slavery, right? Exactly what happened to the West Africans under colonialism, right? Exactly what happened to the people in the Caribbean. Yeah, they're all one nation of people, right? But they've just been spread out across the world. So when you figured that out, right, that is a slavery and affliction, well, you realize that slavery and affliction ended August 21st, 2019. Wow. Right? And after that date, all hell broke loose. Right? There was all sorts of amazing weather events going on. You know, half of America was on fire, the other half was underwater. You know, there was locusts appearing in places in the world when they never saw locusts before. Rivers turning red. Yeah. And then lockdown. The whole world locked down. So the slaves released, lockdown. You know, I don't think it's a coincidence. And the next line after the 400 years of slavery and affliction, it says that nation, the nation that put them into slavery, that nation shall I judge. Now, this nation is a worldwide nation now. So we're under a worldwide judgment right now. And the next thing is the Israelites and other people known as the stranger will be leaving these lands in a second Exodus. So that's what's coming next. And my feeling is in the next 2 or 3 years.
Interesting. And would you say when people are doing God's work and messengers and stuff, they know this and are they assisting with it because it's a force, or is it people actually acting out these knowingly and following a script too?
Well, the bloodline, you know, if the higher echelons of the bloodline, they know exactly what's going on. Yeah. And, you know, but the game that we're playing now, Second Ezra, the book I mentioned, right, tells you the whole point of being here, the whole point of this life and what happens after you die. Yeah. It's very simple. We're in a test, right? And it's an individual test. Okay, so all this stuff you can just put aside. You have an individual test, and that test is very, very simple. It is, what path are you going to walk on? Yeah, you've got two paths every moment of every day. You've got two paths you can walk on. Yeah, you've got the wicked path and the righteous path, right? And you know which is which because it's written right here. Yeah, you know when you're doing wrong, right? It's almost uncomfortable for you to do wrong. Yeah, I keep saying to people, if you lie, right, your whole body goes, I'm lying. Yeah, and more than that, there's all sorts of physiological changes that happen. Right, you know, your heart rate goes up, you start sweating, you start shaking. You know, all sorts of things happen that tell you it's uncomfortable to be doing this. Yeah. Mm. Also, if you kill somebody, right, it's like there's you get a scar on your soul, right? Those people go off to war and they've killed somebody, they come back a different person. They come back almost haunted, yeah, because it's uncomfortable to do wrong, to do evil. So the game is very simple. All this stuff out here doesn't really matter. You know, coronavirus, new world order, you know, chemtrails, fluoride in the water, all this stuff. No, that's just the plot line. Okay. The important thing, right? And this is like watching a film. When you watch a film, you're watching two films. You're watching the plot line of the film, the world the film is set in, but the most important part is the hero's journey through that film. Yeah. You are the hero of your film. Yeah. You're the hero of your journey. Yeah. So it comes down to, what are you going to do? All this stuff doesn't matter. This is just the backdrop. Okay. So in the context of this backdrop, how are you going to play it? Yeah. Now, most of us and most people watching this now have made their choice. Yeah. They see the evil and they don't want to have a part in it. Yeah. Unfortunately, if you don't stand up to the evil, you're condoning it. It's condoning it. Yeah. In law, it's an accessory. If somebody's being murdered down right in front of you and you stand there just watching it, or you're filming it on your phone, then you are now an accessory. You didn't stand up to stop it. You're just as evil as the person doing it. Okay. Again, most of the people watching this and have been standing up to the evil over the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years, right? They've made a stand. Those people who are on the fence, right? Well, I've got my favorite phrase. Yeah. Better make a choice because the devil owns the fence. Yeah. If you're just like that person standing by watching somebody being murdered, you've not stood up against the evil. So I'm afraid you've made your choice. You stand with the evildoers, and it's not going to go well for you when the big game over flashes up in front of you. And essentially that's it. That's the story of the purpose of this life. And that's what's detailed in the Old Testament that the Christians won't let you know.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. The word soldier then just popped up for me as well. Like if you soul and you got dyer, and dyer is one who dies. So they've created that word, one who dies on the soul.
Again, it's in the words. You get out there and kill people, your soul starts to die.
Yeah, wow. So I call myself a soul coach, and I simplify life down to a choice. If it's not your truth, your soul, it's your ego. And in every moment you have a choice. So if you go with that gut feeling, that inner knowing, you're on the right path, you're present, you get that choice every time. If you're unconscious, which a lot of us are, and we get caught up with the imposter, the ego, or knowingly we go against the soul, you will get let's call it a punishment of some sort then as well, because you're going against the flow of life.
Well, I do another talk called Navigating the Matrix. Don't know if you saw that one.
I haven't. I've been on your site as well though, so I'm going to be sharing that on there. But I saw that on there.
Oh yeah, now I've forgotten what I was going to say about it. That's right. The punishment. Okay, so I'm skipping around a lot here, so I hope people are following this. So when that alternate bloodline, the Nephilim, as they're called, when a Nephilim dies, their spirit can't go anywhere, right? The spirit is stuck here on earth, okay? Essentially in Second Esdras, it also says that when the wicked die, their spirits are stuck here. So, that leads me to believe that the wicked are the Nephilim spirits, that Nephilim bloodline. But anyway, so essentially, again, if you die as a wicked or a Nephilim, right, you're stuck down here as a disembodied spirit. Okay, it's just like playing a game like Call of Duty, online, and you die and your friends are still playing, and you have to just wander around as a spectator in spectator mode. You can't play. You're dying to play, but you can't because you're just this ghost walking around, and your friends can't interact with you. You're a ghost. Now, when you combine this idea with the flat Earth, okay, So imagine, and stick with me because I'm going all over the place, but I'll bring it together. So imagine, and this is the way I imagine the flat earth. The flat earth is a bubble of space and time. Okay. 3D space and time only exists here. Outside of here, there is no space and time, right? So there isn't so much an outside. It's a different dimension, different realm, whatever, but it's not space and time. Okay. So when we entered here, when our spirits entered here and became incarnated, the moment you arrive here is the same moment you leave. Okay. Follow that, right? So the same moment that you arrive is the same moment everybody arrives. But when we get here, time and space is here. So you might arrive in, 1972, and I might arrive in 1963, and somebody else might arrive in the Middle Ages, whatever. Yeah. But the same moment we all arrive here is the same moment we all leave together.
Gotcha.
Because no space and time outside of here. Yeah. Right. So when the righteous die, where all the righteous leave at the same time and they go straight to judgment. The wicked have to stay here and plod through time. One, maybe 1,000 years, maybe 10,000 years as a disembodied spirit. That is the punishment, knowing that you're having to plod through time as this disembodied spirit and then be deleted at the end of it. Right? That is the torment. That is the punishment. That is hell. Hell is here and heaven is here, because I got a revelation type thing when I was reading Second Esdras, and I remembered when I was in America, I used to play this video game. I got homesick, and this video game came out called The Getaway.
Getaway, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was about London gangsters, and most of it was, you had to nick a car and drive through London, like a bat out of hell to get to a place within 5 minutes or something. But as I was playing this game and feeling homesick, I'm driving through London and thinking, oh, I used to work over there, and I wonder if that pub's around the corner. But because the game has you kind of trapped, and you have to drive at breakneck speed, or if you stop, the police come out after you and start shooting at you. So the game is forcing you to play. So you can't actually stop and go, I wonder what's over there. Right. So the great thing about that game is when you've beaten the game, it unlocks this free roam mode. So you can go into the game and there's no game anymore. So you can just wander around and grab a car and just drive where you like. And that's it. I once I unlocked the game, I was going, oh yeah, that is where I worked. And wow, it looks really good. And that pub is there. Look, and I was able to enjoy the game now, enjoy the world of the game now. So I believe that not only is this a test that we're in at the moment, it's a preview. Yeah, it's a preview of coming attractions, right? There are things that you would love to do in your life that you can't do, right? You haven't got enough money. You might not live long enough to do it. You might, all sorts of barriers. This game puts up all sorts of barriers to stop you having the experiences that you really want to have, right? But imagine once this game ends, you get to come back here and have any experience you can even imagine having, right? And you can stay here for as long as you like, have as many experiences as you like. And once you've got that inner peace, right, that you've done everything, right, you can go back to the Most High. You give up your individuality and you give all you are back to the Most High. So essentially, the Most High gets to know everything there is to know about experience.
Amazing. It's almost like that some of the films have been putting it in our in plain sight for us to see. Because when you said about going right down, have you seen the film Inception? and he almost gets
Yeah.
caught in limbo at the bottom. But in human time, he's in there for like 1,000 years or something. It almost feels like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the one that got me, there was a TV series in America called The Good Place. And I didn't have an ending for my Navigating the Matrix talk. It ended at judgment, and I didn't know what happened after that. So I was pondering this idea about what happens after judgment, and I got the urge to watch this TV show. I had it saved on my hard disk, so I chose an episode at random. Right, just chose an episode and scrolled through it and started it at random just to sort of get me into it. Yeah. And as I stopped it or scrolled and let go, the first thing that it said was, "Dave, can you explain?" I was like, did this show just talk to me?
You're looking around, hang on.
Yeah. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to watch the whole series now. So I binge watched it for, the course of 3 days. And by the end of it, I had the answer. And the answer, I mean, I've told you the answer, but it was, so it was a group of 4 people wanting to get into, they die and they get into the good place. And after a little while, they realize actually it's a bad place and they're there to torture each other. So the rest of the series is about them trying to get into the good place. Okay. When they finally get into the good place, they find it sucks. It's like, and somebody explains why it sucks. They say everything, you can get to do anything you want to do here. Right, have any experience you want to have, and it's awesome, it's amazing, right? But then once you've done everything, you've still got eternity to go. So then you turn into this like zombie because you've done everything, you've been everywhere, and like, what do you do now? So the 4 people, they come up with the answer, and that is, once you've done everything, you can stay there as long as you like, but once you've done everything, right, and you feel like, I'm done, you can just leave, and that's it. And I think that's the way it really is.
Amazing. Return home.
Yeah, return to the Most High, because we're kind of like the Most High's big toe. Yeah. Imagine the Most High creating this beautiful sea. Yeah. Like the Caribbean Sea is like nice and calm and nice waves lapping, and he wants to know, well, I wonder what it's like to be in that sea. So he might create a big toe to dip in it, just to experience what it's like to be in that sea. That's what we are. We're the big toe. We get to be down here and experience what it's like to be alive in this world. Most High can't do it, so we're down here exploring every aspect of what it means to be alive, so that he can now know what it is, what it means.
I love that. Is when you're explaining it as well, is trying to put that back into Paleo Hebrew and putting it into images as well.
But that is the thing, because we actually naturally think in images, and Terence McKenna, who's in my talk as well, he I found his little snippet of what he was saying, and it was quite amazing. He said the weirdness that you feel when you have a psychedelic experience is literally you thinking in pictures instead of words. So that trip becomes a very visual experience, because that's how you are naturally meant to think. Yeah. And because we're used to thinking in words, it's totally alien to us, but also kind of comforting at the same time.
Yeah, it's almost scary of the infinite and not dying versus scary of dying too. And it's kind of that yin and yang moment of, I guess that just kind of solidifies to enjoy every moment and do what's right and do what you want in life.
Yeah, well, in my common law talk, I actually started by saying the difference between right and wrong. And I'll give a little example. I say, imagine if you're sitting at a table having lunch and the guy next to you gets up and leaves, and you notice, and only you notice, he's left his wallet on his seat. Now, you've got a choice. Yeah, you can either take that wallet home, or you can run after the guy and give his wallet back. Yeah, if you're going to take that wallet home, you'll be doing this. Hope nobody sees you do it, slip it in your pocket, nobody sees you. Yeah. And if you get it home, you'll be going through it, taking the money out and whatever. And if you're human, you'll have a pang of like, oh shit, because he's got his driving license here. He's got his, like the last picture of his mum perhaps, and he's got his keys and he's got credit cards and all. And it's going to, be the bane of his life for the next 6 months or something. Yeah. And if you'll have a pang of remorse, like, wish I could get this back to him without him knowing I took the money out of it. So again, it's uncomfortable, right? But if you were to pick that wallet up to go run after him, you don't care who sees you. It's like, oh, guy's left his wallet. I think he's still over there. And when you give him his wallet back, you get a great feeling you've done something right. Yeah. So what I'm saying is this world is weighted towards being good. If you're aware of yourself, right, you'll know it's weighted towards being good. And as soon as you go on the other side, it's hard and it's uncomfortable. There's something in you that's going, no. Yeah. So yes, we've been given every chance to do the right thing.
Yeah, I love that, mate. And that the test, we're being tested as well. I've been saying a lot of people at the moment, all our actions right now are going to be remembered, and people are going to look back at your influence and your impact, and even sharing information. We're being tested from multiple ways, and it's just to know that we do get rewarded from a satisfaction internally, which we create. It's our own feeling, and I think that is a fundamental for us to keep coming back to, is we get to create that happiness and know that we've done that ourselves.
Yeah, and there's no way you can hide from it, because guess who's recording everything you're doing? You are. Yeah. You're recording, and this is what judgment, according to the book, is judgment is you get to stand in front of the Most High and everyone who's ever lived. Right, and have your life replayed, right, not just on a screen, but in like full 3D Technicolor, not only knowing what you see and hear and everything, but what you're thinking as well. So if you hurt somebody, right, you can't pretend you didn't mean it, because everyone will know you meant it. Yeah. And everyone will also know how the other person is feeling, how you've hurt them. Yeah. So nothing is being hidden, because you're recording your entire universe every moment of every day. Yeah. So right now, your universe is that room, right? Anything you can perceive out the window, and me. Right? So that's your entire universe. Right? And you're recording every single detail of that universe, that bubble around you. Yeah. So there's no hiding from it. Yeah. And there's a reason why it's being recorded. There is an absolute reason why it's being recorded, so it can be played back and then dissected by everyone. And that also, something else dawned on me about this idea, is that I've often said to myself, I wonder if when I die, I'm going to get to find out everything. I'm going to get to know, oh, he was playing that. Okay. And I just wondered, when I die, do I get to find out everything? And think about it. If everyone's is going to judgment,
yeah, he will.
And that's what's going to happen. You're going to get to see everyone's life in absolute detail. So you're going to know everything at the end. And it's all, you're going to know everything instantly, because no time and space.
Yeah.
And sorry, I'm going off on tangents here, but
I apologize. This is amazing.
I had an inkling of how that feels. This idea of a place with no space or time. Okay, so I had a cannabis experience of a recreational plant, and when what it was I could listen to and follow 5 different or 6 different conversations in the room at once. So I could hear everything, and it was amazing. And I tested it, and it was, I heard everything. Then I had an idea, and idea was, is everybody doing this? The moment I had the idea, not only did I have a test, a fully fledged test of that idea came into my head, but I also knew the results of the test, how it went, everything about it, what the implications were about the results of the test, all in one package immediately, as soon as I had the idea. Yeah. And then all I had to do was step through and play it out. Yeah. And that's what I did. The idea was that, or the test was that I would say something really disgusting and vile in my normal voice and see what would happen. And what happened was all the conversations went down, because they all went, what did he say? And it shows that everybody is listening to every single word in a room. It's just that your brain is very cleverly screening out everything and just focused on the conversation you're having. But you know what? If somebody, of the other side of the room says your name, you're like, what was that?
Yeah.
Because you're listening to every word. Yeah. So yeah, I got the feeling of how it works when you get everything beyond space and time, all came at once in one package, and you just knew everything in that package.
It is that knowing, isn't it? And after you've had that knowing, like you said, you can follow it out knowing that it's going to come that way too.
Yeah, I was just stepping through. I already knew the results, just stepping through it, So yeah, so again, I think we were saying this before when we were off air. This is an amazing life, an amazing time to be alive.
I love that. I just want to say thank you for the story as well, because that's been really insightful, and I'm hoping people watching as well, it shows you that there is so much for us to go and uncover and learn. And as this information and truth keeps coming out, there's going to be a lot more things where we're going to find out who we are, why we're here, and what we're capable of, but also the ultimate meaning of us, the individual. So it's an exciting time to be alive. And are you able just to share where people can find you? And I encourage people, go and watch a lot of the stuff that Dave has done, because it is a full spectrum of work, and it's his work and research too, which he puts his own experience on, which is what I love about truth, is I relate to it because it's from your story. It's not just regurgitated and repeated. It's what you've done, and I encourage people. This is the journey that we all need to go on, is go down your own paths, learn from people, and then make it make sense to you.
Exactly. Well, yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel, which is dmurphy25. I've got a website, allegedlydave.com. And I've actually just started a Telegram group, Ask Allegedly Dave, just to get all the questions in one place. But it's not working out. I'm getting more questions than I had before. So, so yeah, but yeah, those are the places you can get me. I'm actually moving off of Facebook. I don't see it. It used to be useful to share information and stuff, but it's getting less and less useful. And I think there's less and less actual people on it. I think it's more bots than anything else. So yeah, it won't be long before I'm off that altogether.
Awesome. I'll leave them links below as well. And is there any words of wisdom that you can share with them to finish off today?
Well, really, it's what I've just gone through. Really, that this is a game. This is a game we're playing. Yeah. If you don't know that it's a game, then the game plays you. Yeah. And you'll get sort of being pushed around from pillar to post by circumstances. But no, this is a game, and you are more powerful in this game. Yeah, you're bigger in this world than you imagine. Yeah, the world is smaller than you think. You're bigger in it than you can possibly imagine. And you have an effect on the world. I can go into another story, but I'll give you a little example of imagine a cell in your hand. Okay. Now one day that cell might go, oh, I need salt. There's no salt here. If I don't get any salt, I'm going to die. Where's the salt? Where's the salt? Where's the salt? Yeah. Eventually that's going to percolate up to you. And you might go, I fancy anchovies tonight, you know? And all of a sudden that cell's going to go, what a coincidence. I've been dying for some salt and all this salt arrived. How does that happen? It's because that cell isn't on its own. It's not separate. It's part of a body, right? And we are part of a whole. Okay, we're not all separate. We're not all disconnected from each other. We're part of a whole, and that whole is this entire earth. So when you want something, when you desperately need something, the whole world is going to arrange itself so that you can have it, right? Now you can work against yourself to stop it happening, right? And the system makes you do that, makes you believe that no, the world doesn't work that way. You have to get a good job and earn some money and get these qualifications and jump through this hoop and that hoop, and then maybe you might be able to do what it is you want to do. But no, the world works in a totally different way. So realize that it's a game and enjoy playing.
Perfect. Thank you so much for today, mate. And again, a big thank you for all the work that you have done. And for everyone watching, I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, enjoy the show. And we got a lot to look forward to.
I've got enough popcorn to see me through.
Awesome. Thank you so much, buddy.
You're welcome. Right, you take care.
Thank you.